Welcome back, everyone. The video you're about to watch is part of a live stream series that I do on Twitch where I teach people how to build an Android app from start to finish by building a task management application. I've removed the episode numbers from the videos because it's designed that each one can be consumed individually. Each week, I pick a particular topic or feature and focus on just that for the live stream. If you are interested in watching the full playlist, check out the links in the description below. But if you just found this one and it intrigues you, I hope you enjoy it and let me know what you think. All right, happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome back. I am excited to be back from vacation. I had a great time. I'm sorry I missed all of you last week. I hope you didn't have too much fun without me. I'm sure Trex and the other folks over in Europe probably got some good sleep last Wednesday that they don't normally get. um, yeah, I'm excited to be back. I spent some of the time in between the last stream and this one actually playing around with the app for myself, which is something I probably should have been doing in the months that we've been working on this. Um, Yo, Prince with all the gifted subs. Thank you so much. Everyone, if you got a sub, thank you to Prince. I see plenty of the regulars got one. Matt cheated. Matt got one twice. I don't remember the reason why Matt has two Twitch accounts, but I love that each of them got gifted a sub in that little sub bump. Um, but yeah, thank you so much. I don't know what I did to deserve that. Um, I mean, I'm assuming we'll count it as a birthday gift. For those of you who have a keen eye, the numbers in my username are not random. They're for March 31st, which is tomorrow, which is my birthday. So I will call that a birthday gift, and thank you so much. Um, but yeah, what was I saying? Oh, that I was using the app a little bit, which is something I should have been doing in the months that we've been working on it. And I immediately noticed a ton of things that I wish I did differently when I wasn't focused on just building something. So I made a few GitHub issues, and I'll tell y'all what some of those ideas were. Um, and then maybe we'll just pick on something to work on. Um, I think for tonight, maybe we'll just pick some of the low hanging fruit or things that I think will be a little easier. But I did have ideas for some bigger. Thank you, Trex. Some bigger features and cool stuff to work on. So let's go ahead and switch over to the coding view. For those of you who don't have the GitHub repo, I'll actually share a link to the issues page. So once again, a plug. If you're ever watching these streams and you have an idea of, it could be a feature that you think would be implemented or even a topic that you would like to see covered that you think relates in some way to this application, feel free to make an issue on the repo yourself. This is usually something I use to kind of find inspiration in things I work on in the stream. I try to keep this super organized. So you're welcome to create your own. You're also welcome to just share ideas in chat, send me direct messages on Twitter. Every once in a while, I'll do a live stream that's not necessarily associated with building this app. So for topics that aren't quite related, for example, I've been wanting to do a live stream where I work through a GraphQL API, which is not something, at least right now, that I see myself using in this project. I could do a sort of one-off stream to talk about those things, but anyways, this screen exists. This list exists for people to provide ideas and things for streams. So here are some of the. Actually, instead of reading you the issue titles, let me show you. Y'all should be able to see the application on the right here. Some ideas that came to mind. So the first one that I noticed and starting to use this more and more for myself is that when I open this screen, nothing is focused at all. And that might be fine, except I open the screen to start recording a task. And so the fact that I have to press on this input and then start typing in something I have to do, that just feels like an extra step that's not necessary. So there should be a way to treat this kind of like a form and have it autofocus on that input when the screen becomes visible. I don't know exactly how that's going to work in a composed environment, but that is one of the things I've found that I would like to fix. Another one was just around some of the copy updates. So I talked about how I've always wanted to make this like a wholesome application, and the idea of incomplete tasks and completed tasks just, I don't know, it doesn't feel very gentle. It feels very harsh, sort of like list of things to do. And I had some ideas around how we could make this copy a little nicer and try to go closer to the ideas I had when I started this of sort of building a more compassionate task management application for myself. And that also applies to like the empty state screen. Um, the way we say you have nothing scheduled today, click the button on the bottom right to add one. I would love to reword this to just say like you have nothing scheduled today, like get some rest, or make time for yourself. Say like you don't have anything going on, but you also don't need to make anything going on. So reminding people that it's okay to take breaks and they don't necessarily have to click a button and add something to get done that day. Um, and what was the other idea? Oh, and then along this line of panning through dates, um, no, no, we do not do that here. But along the line of panning through dates is like if I'm looking at a date, say April 3rd, and I go to add a task, the date picker here is still focused on today's date. But I think it would make sense that like if I'm looking at the context of another date, that when we launch the screen, we could tell it what date we were looking at and have this field right here sort of pre-populate with the date we were looking at. Um, and yeah, those were just some small things I've noticed that each of those things I think are probably what we'll tackle tonight. And then maybe yes, I will be here next week. So next week there was a bigger one, which is I want to make a home screen widget real bad because I was playing around with a different task management app, Todoist, and they have just a phenomenal home screen widget experience. And I realized I liked that a lot. While I wanted to make it more gentle and not intrusive, I liked being able to have something on my home screen to help keep me organized and on schedule. And so I really want to build something like that. But I don't think we're going to go down that rabbit hole tonight. Um, Question here. Can you explain why Android apps now take up 400 megabytes to 1 gigabyte of space when 5 years ago it was like 10 megabytes to 100 megabytes of space? That is a great question that I don't know if I know. I don't know if there's an exact answer. What I think the answer would be is that um, as as phones and the capability of phones and hardware itself has gone up to these sort of massive storage devices, memory management on the part of the application developers has become deprioritized. I don't want to say it's less important, but that's kind of how the industry has treated it because we no longer really, at least in a lot of markets, there's a big privilege in what I'm about to say here. But in a lot of markets, we no longer have devices where we're really competing for space. I remember it used to be that like I would sometimes have to delete one app to make room for another, but I don't really have to do that anymore. And that comes from a privilege of being able to afford those devices. But I think because there are large markets in that situation, I just don't think developers have given app size the sort of priority that we did in the past. Um, and that's affected both the individual app developers. It's also, our apps include tons of third party dependencies that add a lot of size to our app builds. But again, it's because like we just no longer have to fight to keep it down to that small size anymore. And I'm sure part of it is a lot of apps maybe storing a lot of information that they don't need to. There's probably like a secondary portion of that. Like, why does. Like, I know that the Facebook app itself is supposed to be very lean, and yet you'll see they have tons of storage, probably because they record everything. So that's another debate. But I don't know. I don't have anything to back that up, but those are my sort of opinions and kind of what I've seen as far as how developers treat app size over years. Yeah, no, exactly. I just don't. I think because hardware has caught up so quickly that we don't need to. And I guess that's kind of like, in principle, that sounds wrong. Because we shouldn't necessarily be careless. But because the consequences aren't the same, people are careless. So I think that makes sense. I think there are still sectors where that is important. Um, Companies that build backend systems, performance is extremely important. Um, like the APIs that our apps work with, they do care about performance and space and how do they make those endpoints operate quickly. But I think mobile apps, we don't always do that. Um, I have watched talks where they say OOP languages are the cause of this because a lot of the tools we use right now are garbage collected languages with a huge amount of abstractions. I've heard that too. So when Kotlin first became supported, one of the pushbacks by people against using Kotlin was that they saw for the same application, they saw an increase in app size from using Kotlin. I don't remember how much, but I do remember that being something people complained about. Um, I don't know. I don't know what happened to that conversation because again, I guess in any role I was in, that was never prioritized or a big concern. I don't know if the JetBrains team made work on reducing that. I would expect that they have. I've also seen that with Flutter. That was a big complaint, and I think it still is, that like the Flutter SDK takes up a lot of space. You could build a Hello World app in Android that's like 1 meg, and the same Hello World app in Flutter is like 10, just because Flutter brings up a lot of boilerplate. So that is one way it can help up or creep up on us. So that's a good question. So I think there's a lot of answers um, as a result. But yeah, and that's the OOP languages is a good point because Android does offer like a native development kit where you can build portions of your apps with like C and C++ plus plus when you need to be super conscious of the memory management, which is not something I've come across as an individual, but I know it exists. I know that is something some folks have to worry about. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think there are still folks who do evangelize for that. Um, but it's especially something I don't work on a lot of, say, open source tooling that other apps use, but I know that some of the folks who work on stuff like retrofit and things like that, um, they have to be conscious of dependencies they bring in and how do they expose as little as possible. Um, there's this Google engineer named Chandler Carruth who has some very interesting performance optimization talks, usually on C++ Con. Yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to look into that. Um, I think it is an interesting conversation, and I think there is also combating the nature of companies that prioritize monetization. That's absolutely fair. Um, that's again, if I'm a US based startup and everyone in the US has a phone that is, again, very privileged to say everyone, but if my target market of wealthy people in major cities are likely to have phones with 64, 128, 250 gigs of space on them and performance isn't required, then yeah, I'm just going to do whatever I can to get to market faster. That is how capitalism operates. Um, Versus if I operate in a market where people don't have that luxury, I need to be much more conscious of it. And these two things can definitely compete with each other for sure. So, That was a good question. Um, Maybe I should record that as an idea for in the future too, because Android gives a lot of um, profiling options for our application, so we can be mindful of. There's like an APK analyzer to check our build size. There's ways to see how much memory and storage we're using while the app is running, and it would be good to audit that one day and see like what can we do better. If I were to go to just like my apps build.gradle file, there's a whole slew of dependencies in here that probably add a lot to the build size that if I needed to cut down on them, I could look into some way of doing that, but it's certainly not negligible by any stretch. So thank you for that question. I thought that was a good conversation. So I like talking about this stuff on the philosophy of the software industry. It's like a meta theory on the decisions of the industry itself. Yeah, yeah, no, I think it is really interesting to look at it that way. Um, and it's hard because the answer you get could vary so much from person to person and company to company. Um, but it is interesting to think about in theory. Like if this is something we all generally agree is a good thing. If performance and memory management is, in principle, a good thing, why do we all throw it by the wayside nowadays? That's a great question. So while we're talking, though, we can keep talking, but one of the things I want to work on, do some coding while we're talking, is updating the copy that we talked about. So I'm going to make this, that was ticket number 126. So let's make a new branch. Um, and talk through those. So one that stood out that I was thinking of is this screen where we're showing actual tasks. And I was thinking about these two titles, right? And how they're just kind of very jarring. They describe what is here, which is what I was doing. But if I'm trying to build a more gentle task management app, this isn't necessarily the language that I want like thrown at me. So one thing I thought of to start is let's go into our task list. I think it's task list is the composable that has all this. Um, yes. So we have this section header for incomplete tasks. What I would do is I just want to get rid of this entirely. I think that it makes sense when we run if we can just show Cheater Noob, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the stream. I think it makes sense when we see a list here of just the this is a task management app. It's kind of like an understood contract that I'm going to see a list of things that need to be completed. So there's no need to say like, "Hey, you haven't done this." Let's just start showing you the list of things that you can do. And then completed tasks still make sense to me as a piece of text worth having. But I started thinking about if there was a better way to phrase that. And what I was thinking of is instead of completed tasks, what if we called it like accomplishments? Like, hey, these are the things you accomplished on a given day. So that just reads a little nicer. That's a nice little uplift. Like an accomplishment is a good thing. It's something to be proud of. Um, so we can get rid of this header saying, look at all the things you didn't do. We can just show you the task that you know you have to do. And then we can also say, like, look at what you've accomplished. So once I clean my desk, which I did not actually do, but I could just click this and have that move down into the accomplishments section. Um, and we could probably keep that empty state there. Um, you've completed everything you need to do today. I like that. Or we could stick with the sort of language here. Let's call this accomplished everything you need to do today. You've accomplished Can we make it shorter? Can we say you've accomplished everything for today? Do I like that? Um, yeah, let's run that. Let's see how that looks and how that reads. Um, oh, this is a t-shirt quilt in the background. That is all of the t-shirts from the hackathons I went to in college. Some form of hackathon that I was a sponsor at, that I organized or that I attended and participated and actually built something. Um, there's 20 t-shirts there from all over. So the two in the middle with the GH, those are really important. Those are the hackathon that I organized at my university. But there are hackathons from around Michigan, Maryland, Indiana, Ohio, Georgia Tech, a couple MLH season T-shirts at the top corners. I don't think you could see them anymore. Um, yeah, so I finally hung that up. I guess I thought I had it on the last stream, but maybe not. And then just to show off another random thing, if you've been following on Twitter, you know about my Lego Hogwarts. And so Lego Hogwarts got its own table in the corner of the office because that's how much space it takes up. So I bought a table specifically for holding Hogwarts. Um, but that is finally done after over a month. We'll see. Um, so there's a couple copy updates. Um, let's see, where was others? So we also want to talk about this empty state here. So um, ah, so let's go ahead and make a commit real quick for that first one. We can say um, updating copy for task list screen. Um, I just remembered two things. ADHD brain here. Um, the first thing, those of you who were here last week know that we looked at screenshot testing in Jetpack Compose, but we could not get it to run fully on our GitHub Actions environment, and I have not spent time to figure that out yet. So we will revisit that in the future, um, but not yet. Uh, the other thing, so with this empty state, I want to rearrange the text here, but it brought up another idea of. So, one thing I've seen in other to do apps that I don't like, but is important, is like, so on Todoist, for example, if I have a lot of tasks that I don't complete, they show you this like overdue tasks and it's red and it has this list and each one also has red text and it's a lot and it like feeds into that sort of guilty feeling that I want to avoid with this app. However, I think from a logical standpoint, there's something to be said that if I say I should do something, but I don't get to it for any number of reasons, I probably don't want to forget about it entirely, because at some point in time it was important to me. So, trying to think of a gentle way to resurface tasks that did not get completed. And one idea, also courtesy of Matt, actually, was on this empty state, we could potentially put like a little hyperlink on here that says, you know, looking for something to do, view your unscheduled task, or something like that. So you could say, like, any tasks that have not been completed, like, they now go into some sort of like unscheduled state, and we can pull from that list in the future and say, here are the things that you said were important but you haven't gotten done or something like that. Obviously wouldn't phrase it that way again, but there is a ticket in there for thinking of a way to surface those incompleted tasks. But before we do that then, what I would do is just change this text to the first part. So we could say, let's change this to say like you have nothing scheduled for today. I also wonder if this is. Well, we'll talk about this in a second. We could say Get some rest and take time for yourself. Or what is it? I wonder if we could randomize it. Like if we could think of a couple different heartwarming messages and randomize it, that would be cool. But we could change that in the future. Let's say you have nothing scheduled for today. Make time for yourself. Let's do that. That's calm and gentle enough. Um, we could totally randomize it though. But it leads to another thing that just occurred to me, which is does it make sense for this to say you have nothing scheduled for today when the date I'm looking at is April 2nd? Would it make more sense to inject the date into this copy somehow? Because they could change this to say, like, you have nothing scheduled for this date, which I guess works, but it also feels like, I don't know, feels like kind of like corporate-y, jargony to me. Um, oh, this day. This day sounds nicer than date. Date sounds so formal now. Um, okay, you have nothing scheduled for this day. I think that makes sense. You're free. Master has given you a sock. You have nothing scheduled for this day. Make time for yourself. Yeah, I like this. I like this. But one more copy case to think about before we call this ticket done. Um, let's throw this in for tomorrow. So I also have this like empty state for accomplishments. And I kind of think again, if this if there are none, maybe we should just not show anything here yet. Um, because it's while it's a little more like wholesome and being an accomplishment section, it also is just another way of saying you have not done anything today. That is ultimately what this tells me. So why do I need to surface that? Let's go into task list and let's see. Um, let's just change this entirely. Let's get rid of this. Let's say we're not going to show that. So here we're going to show. I'm rearranging some code here. Let me see. So we've got an item for the section header, and we've got an items of like those accomplished tasks. Let's wrap this in an if. Whoops. Let's wrap this in a big if statement. We're gonna say if. Uh, do you state? Oh God. What is it? Eh. Okay, IDE. What's happening? If completed tasks is not empty, we're gonna add this. Otherwise, we add nothing. So let's run this, and let's see what we get. And before we push this, I'm pretty sure we had some instrumentation tests to validate this UI, which are now probably broken. So we're going to run those to make sure this works. Got it. Okay, so tomorrow, we just see what is scheduled for tomorrow. I like this. And then once I mark something as done, now I will see the accomplishments section, and I will also see the empty state at the top saying, you've accomplished everything for today. Ooh, excuse me. Um, yeah, I like this a lot. So let's go ahead and commit that. Um, updating empty state copy. And after we push this, we can run our tests to see how broken they are. Um, I guess we should have done a little more TDD approach where we worked out the solution first and then ran our tests. But you win some, you lose some. We're not always going to have a perfect TDD approach. I also just remembered that I have ideas for changing around the multi-module structure that we're working on, but I think I'll save that for uh, a future thing as well. Oh, is this? Oh, that's right. I broke this last time. So this test doesn't even run because we added this on date selected callback that we need to add to our unit tests. And I think unfortunately last time I merged a pull request before I even verified this. So oops, let's get all these compile errors out of the way. Um, let's let's go through our tests here. So we have render with no tasks, and so this looks for the empty label and verifies it's displayed. This makes sense. Um, this is rendering with no incomplete tasks. So this means all of our tasks are completed. So we expect this you've accomplished everything to be displayed. That is still true. Um, and then with no complete tasks, um, I think we basically want to remove this. This is where we were checking for the completed task to be rendered. Now, tests are hard in this case. How do I verify that? How do I verify that something was not displayed? Right? That is kind of the question here. Um, and I don't know the answer to that. So let's not worry about that sort of negative assertion. We'll just verify that the incomplete task is indeed rendered. Um, I think something we could consider doing, if I'm not mistaken, I think on a lazy column now, there might be a way in the test utils to sort of verify the number of children, in which case we could do that. We can make sure that what is rendered is what we expect, but I think the assertions that we already had were fine. We just had to remove that one because we changed the way by not showing accomplishments until there were any. So that's why that test needed to change. But otherwise, these should still pass, and I think we will be okay with that. Well, while we're waiting for this to run, we're going to have to do the other classic thing. Ah, nice, they're running. Nice, and they all passed. So, let's also, before we make this pull request, wow, I really don't know how to title my streams. So I guess this is stream 24. This is once again small feature development, which is something I keep doing, which is making naming my YouTube videos really hard. Uh, Copy updates. But maybe I should break down the YouTube videos to sort of like each PR, and we have like TOA, like copy updates as like a YouTube video, which I'm also very behind on our YouTube videos. Ooh, gotta hydrate. We'll do that in 1 second. Um, Dating pass. Cheers. And then we'll get this pull request going, and we can maybe work on one of the other small things that we had planned. Um, I don't know exactly what. Well, maybe we can work in the input focus thing that I want to do because I don't quite know the answer to that. Um, okay, so copy updates. Copy updates on task list screen. So this we could say fixes number 126. What did I say? 126. Um, Label here. Let's put enhancement on this one. That works. Oh, we should give this a project. I don't really know. I guess this is home screen. Um, Create pull request. So that's, yeah, all that should be good. Um, nice. Let's look at our issues and let's see if we can think of something we want to do after this. I'm pausing. I'm probably, now that I said that, maybe I'll split this up for YouTube. So that's what that pause was.